Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for a post-match pint in association with Purity Ale. If you use the code #VillaView, you'll get 10% off everything that Purity Ale have to offer. Ideal time to move your mic, Omar. Why not wait until just as the show starts? Absolute perfect time. We've been sat here for 10 minutes waiting to go. Move the mic now. Absolute perfect timing. We're here to talk about Chelsea 0, Aston Villa 2, but I mean, the football world has just gone crazy in the last 24 hours. So much happening at the Villa game actually feels like it was a long time ago. It's only just 24 hours ago that it finished, Omar. But Gemma just put on Twitter, it's nice to see some other clubs in crisis and Villa not be involved for once, because as all the other clubs are falling apart in the Premier League, so it seems, Aston Villa feel in as good a place as we've ever felt.
Yeah, it feels weird saying that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We talked about earlier, weren't we, just before we started the show, that Emery's now the 12th longest serving manager. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? How many did you count? Yeah. How many managers still here from the beginning?
8 managers that started the season in the Premier League that are still here, if my maths is correct, of just counting the league table like I just did, and my memory is correct. Yeah, 8 managers that started the season are still at the club they started the season with, which is just... We knew this season was going to be funny in general because of the World Cup break. That was always going to make this season strange. But I don't know whether that's even played into the sackings, because in the last week, Conte, Rodgers, and now Potter have all lost their job. But we're sitting watching Villa absolutely loving life, Omar. It is just a strange time to be alive.
It is. And we've finally got a bit of... We've got identity. We've got a style of play. We've got a manager who knows what he's doing. It feels weird saying that after
all the things we didn't start the season.
We didn't start. No, exactly. It feels like such a long time ago we were moaning about Steven Gerrard to where we are now. And obviously we'll talk about the game and where we're going and how happy we are with Villa. But it's just crazy, really, when you think about it and what's going on in the rest of the league. And also in terms of the sackings as well. I don't know about what you think, but I think a lot of the timing of the sackings seem really weird to me. Like,
it's late to be doing it.
Really late in the day, and well into the losing runs of these managers, or how poor they've been, like Rodgers, and now obviously Potter as well. And just in terms of how late in the day they are, you thought that probably about 5 or 6 games earlier they would have gone. And they got to this stage now where you think actually they'll just stay with them. They'll just commit to the rest of the season, give them a chance, see if they can turn it around. Chelsea are not going to do anything anyway. You might as well give Potter to the end of the season. So, yeah, it seems like playing Villa is a bad omen now, isn't it? Obviously, we're getting Potter sacked. I think long may that continue. But yeah, excellent win. I thought Chelsea were actually okay in terms of their general play and the chances they created.
Same old problems they've had all season. I didn't think they were bad. They just don't have a striker.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just. To be honest, it's not just Potter's fault. Obviously, we know Potter's a good coach, and he hasn't done well there. But just behind the scenes, I think what they've done, the mismatch of players they've got, there's no design. There is no rhyme or reason in terms of who they've signed, why they've signed them, how they all fit together. It's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, especially when you think like they've got all those players. I think any manager would struggle to wed those players together at this point. You can't sign that many players in the summer and January and expect to have a cohesive team at this point. It just isn't going to happen. But you've given him this long and you've talked about committing to him and that he's part of the long-term project. To go this far, I find it strange, like you said, the timing to do it now. I mean, with all the best will in the world, I don't see them getting past Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinals, whoever is in charge. So just a strange time to be a football fan, and a strange time to be involved in the Premier League, because there's just so much going on. I was obviously at Leicester on Thursday doing Rodgers' press conference for Sky, and then I've met him once. I may never see him again. I've gone to Leicester once, done Rodgers, thought he was a nice guy, enjoyed speaking to him. Gone out of a job by the time the weekend.
Maybe it's you, mate. Maybe it's you.
Well, it's Villa, isn't it? I'm obviously involved in Villa in some kind of way in terms of being a supporter, but you could feel the pressure at Leicester. They're all worried about going down, and owners will be worried about going down. But I do think any manager who's worth his salt at this stage of the season, managers don't take jobs. Good managers, anyway, really good ones, don't take jobs in April. No. So I think it's all the teams that have changed manager in the last week. I think they won't be making any long-term appointments at this stage of the season. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the Premier League. We are here to talk about Villa, and it was an excellent win. We are just so good. And I think what says everything is that I watched Villa on Tour's video this morning, and you listening to the people speak before the games, and predictions are wild at the best of times when you've been drinking all day. But everyone who does the predictions in that video, who goes to the away games, was feeling that Villa would win, doing pre-match shows, going on the other stuff that I do, predicting Villa to win, predicting Villa not to lose. You kind of just fancied us beforehand anyway, but there were so many good aspects to that win, and we'll obviously talk about a lot of the stuff that happened in the game. But talk about Chelsea not having a striker. That's one thing we've got at the moment. We have got a striker who is on absolute fire, and although he missed an early chance that he perhaps should have done better with, to bounce back and score the goal that he did, which was a lovely finish, poor defending from Cucurella, obviously, but that's a striker that's on top of his game at the moment, and his form is just absolutely outstanding.
Brilliant, yeah. 5 away goals in a row now, and is only one of 3 players to score 10 goals or more in the last 3 seasons, alongside Salah and Harry Kane. So I know he's had his critics earlier on in the season, especially under Gerrard, but we both said, I think, on here and on offline, that it's really hard to judge players when we're playing under Gerrard. It was really hard, especially like some McGinn we'll come on to in a second as well. It's a transformation really of the team, transformation of the players. Confidence is so important for strikers as well, in terms of finishing and in terms of going on a run. And I don't know if you saw Watkins' little interview with Tube on Sky as well. That was quite an interesting insight as well.
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting. He was talking about how sort of the advice he's been given over the years from different managers and things like that. And to be fair, Steven Gerrard gave him one bit of advice, which I think is sort of stuck with him, and said, do you think every day was going to be a good day? Which was basically saying, you're going to have bad days. You just got to get on with it. You've got to be resilient, and don't give yourself a hard time. And I think I don't know if you remember when we first signed him and he went on that run. He scored against Liverpool, Arsenal, etc. And he still missed a couple of chances. Then he was saying, he gives himself a hard time. He wasn't really that happy because he was gutted he didn't score more. And he was saying himself that he's changed that sort of mentality where he's given himself a bit of a break and sort of letting it. I can't remember which manager said it, but he was talking about basically just letting things happen, letting things flow, just not worrying about it too much. Things will happen, things will come good. And I think that's what we're seeing now. He's obviously in a good run. He's getting the right places. And when he missed that first chance, you sort of, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, it's a good one. Is that going to cost us? And Watkins has done that too many times over the last couple of years, but still he was there. He was still fighting, still going. And he was in the right position. And again, another thing he said in that interview was that what Emery's told him, and he just said, Emery's just told him basically not to drop deep, not to get involved in the play, just hang off the last defender, run the channel, sort of get in behind, and just let the team do their work for you to create chances for you. And I think that's what we're seeing. That ball over the top, he was sort of anticipated it. Didn't look like anything was on. David Luiz does really well to turn his man and play a ball over the top. Wasn't quite there, but Cucurella is poor. But Watkins is there anticipating and really, really calmly slotted it away, and just a fantastic start after. And I thought generally for the first 20 minutes, we'll talk about the rest of the 25 minutes, the rest of that first half. But I thought for the first 20 minutes we were good for it. Obviously, McGinn hit the bar as well, which was another good chance.
I think both teams had a let off. We obviously got caught playing the ball out from the back in that famous one where we try and play it down the middle and it doesn't always go well. I think at that point Kamara, he was hobbling a bit, wasn't he? He just got injured, I think, and Martinez has played in the ball in a dangerous area, perhaps not knowing how bad his injury is. And I think on another day we probably don't do that. We're fortunate to get away with it. It's a great save from Martinez, but then they got away with one as well with Watkins going through and lashing it wide. So I do think you're right. I think Villa, although we weren't on top in terms of probably having the ball and creating chances, thought when we did go forward, we looked more dangerous than them, if that makes sense. Our attacks were maybe few and far between than theirs were. But when we do come forward, we come with a purpose. And I just felt, when McGinn hit the bar, you just thought as well, this goal's got to come for him soon. Now, it's getting ridiculous to be going this long without scoring. But on Watkins, he's just so selfless. And I think when you're a selfless player like him, you can end up finding yourself in positions that perhaps aren't beneficial to the team because you work so hard, because you're trying to cover other people and close down. But that advice from Emery has worked a treat, because since we've come back after the World Cup, he has just been on fire. I remember seeing an interview with him when I think he'd scored 3 in a row, and he was saying about ending the season and scoring every game. There's only one game since then that he hasn't scored in, and that was the Bournemouth game, wasn't it, at home? Or maybe Palace. He didn't score against Palace either, actually, did he? So 2. But, he's still, his record at the moment is absolutely incredible, especially away from home. And to score in 5 away games in a row, I mean, did we even score 5 goals away from home under Steven Gerrard? To to now have a striker that's scoring. I mean, we score every game as well.
I just like the way.
Ridiculous thing.
I just like the thought. Obviously, saw Unai Emery his Instagram post, back to work sort of type thing, which is Unai Emery.
He was playing Football Manager.
Yeah.
I've done that before. Said I'm doing work and I'm playing Football Manager.
For those know, I met Dan for the first time last week. Obviously, we've been so many podcasts together. We went to the Villa Women's game, and Dan did spend a good 10 minutes talking about his Football Manager game.
Oh, what a save! Great time. It's gone downhill actually since I spoke to you in the last week. Lost a couple of big games, and unfortunately, Unai Emery was 100% playing Football Manager.
Yeah, but I mean, he knows what he's doing. Well, firstly, obviously, he works his arse off. You can tell he's, he was talking about Andorra's game in the second division or something, wasn't he? I think someone mentioned. He's obviously a detailed guy. He works hard and he pays dividends, but also he knows how to get the fans on side. He uses his social media sparsely, but when he uses it, he uses a way to sort of, deliver a message, getting people united, getting the club united. And I think he knows what he's doing. But just in terms of the way you can see the work and the effort that goes into the way that we play football, both home and away, and the difference the way we play at home in terms of a higher line, take a bit more risk, playing the offside trap and things like that, to where we play away, where we're a little bit more compact, a bit more, a bit more defensive. Yeah, but there's a plan there. We know we've got the players on the break to hurt teams, and we're not a damp squib going forward. We've got ability there going forward. We create chances, we make things happen. Yeah, we didn't create too many chances against Chelsea, but there was still, the McGinn chance. There was a Watkins 1-on-1, obviously the goal, and Ramsey's as well. Where
Ramsey had a couple. He had a couple where really, he's done excellent, and he's probably made not the right decision in the final move. But like you say, he's still carrying a purpose and still carrying a threat every time he come forward. Same with Wendy. He was maybe a little bit quiet in the first half, but when he was on the ball, he did make things happen. And that's the thing now. We might be quiet, but when we do come forward, it is always with a purpose.
Yeah, 100%. And I think defending is also part of football. People forget that. Just because you don't play free-flowing football all the time. I'm not saying we don't. We do play at home. I think we play a fantastic brand of football. And even when we're on the counter, the way we transition, I think we play a fantastic brand of football that way as well. But defensively, I think it's so important we get that right as well. And I think, the likes of Mings, Moreno and Konza, especially, I thought on Saturday were fantastic. Konza putting some great tackles in. Moreno, I've been loving him going forward, but I've been fairly critical of him at the back in terms of, I thought he's been a bit weak in the tackle and things like that, but I thought he was fantastic against Chelsea. Really committed, strong. Playing against Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's not natural right back, but still a strong, quick player and skillful player, and can hurt teams. And I thought he was fantastic, and just his willingness to get in a tackle and compete for the ball, which I don't think I've seen that much of him. Obviously, he's been trying to get used to the league and get to the pace of the league. I think it was fantastic. Not getting us forward as much as he normally does, but showing both sides of the game. Again, and Martinez as well, obviously.
He was really good yesterday, Martinez. Really good. He's
got the record now, obviously, 34 clean sheets in 100 games. But just really solid and ease pressure when we needed it. Come to claim the ball a few times as well.
Yeah, that's massive. That is.
Yeah, you need that, don't you? I think that's massive.
Yeah, we were just we were so good. I think in the second half, the stats, I think we may have only even had one shot in the second half, and that was the goal. But even though Chelsea were peppering us at times, I think I would say, it was 1-0. We're going in at half time. There was moments where we did look maybe perhaps a little bit suspect at the back in the first half. Yeah. The header, the Chilwell goal that got disallowed. I think it was a foul. I think that gets given in the Premier League nowadays. That is a foul. But the ref, we would have done well by the ref, because I think the referees in those situations can quite easily not blow and just let VAR have a look at it and decide. But he was decisive and he blew the whistle. And I think that then VAR looked at it and they're never going to overturn that because it's not a clear and obvious error. But if he hadn't have blown and it had gone to VAR, I think the goal probably stands.
Yeah.
So I think the ref did us a favour on half time. You can say he's doing his job or whatever, but a lot of refs, they won't blow their whistle and they'll just let VAR deal with the goal afterwards. So the ref did us a massive favour, in my opinion, by blowing, because that wouldn't have got overturned had he not blown. So, they did cause us problems. Like Martinez had to be quick to mop up his kind of own mistake that he was involved in as well in the first half. But in the second half, I didn't feel worried at any point, even at 1-0. I just thought Chelsea aren't going to score here, because this is the thing that Unai Emery does, right? I said this on Twitter yesterday. He's the most reactive and proactive manager I have ever seen at Villa. Because Kamara, he was struggling a little bit, wasn't he? clearly not fully recovered from his knock. He picked up a knock early on in the game and didn't look like he was moving freely to me. So he's a big player for Villa, and you would think him going off, that's really, even like when he didn't play for 3 or 4 games, you think that's going to be huge. But Emery just finds a solution. You know, he brings Chambers on, and you maybe just think Chambers would come in and play central midfield. But he didn't. Just drops him into the defence. We kind of have a little bit of a tweak of a system and what we're doing. I thought Chambers was brilliant. And we just looked composed and looked comfortable, and we could deal with everything that Chelsea threw at us in that second half. They had a lot of ball, they had a lot of shots, but I never really felt like that they were going to score. And to have a manager now that can just change that system up and switch up personnel, take advantage of something that should be a negative to your team and turn it into a positive. That is rare. You look at Chelsea's subs yesterday; their subs were probably making them worse. In actual fact, all the subs they were doing, like I say, we've turned something there that should be a real negative into a positive and ended up getting 3 points from us. We've got a manager here who is just absolutely incredible. We are so fortunate to have him. And when I think about what we had before, and to have landed on Emery and got him in, we need to be looking at trying to, even though we probably need to look at giving him a new contract now and getting an extortionate release fee on him, because he is absolutely incredible. The job he has done, I feel like now, because we've beat Chelsea, people will start to talk about us. But people haven't been talking about the job that he's been doing. They now showed the league table on Sky saying that we're third since Emery came in, and people are starting to take notice. But that's been there for weeks now, that we've been in and around the top 4. When I was at Leicester, I was speaking to one of the journalists, and I said about Villa being in the top 4 since Emery had turned up. He was genuinely shocked that I'd said that, and that was true. He couldn't believe it. So we've been flying under the radar. But now, because we beat Chelsea, obviously that's all going to change. But that substitution, that's just a masterclass. And we've lamented Villa managers not being able to change a game for a positive for years.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's such a good sign as well that
I'd lost you briefly.
Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, I think it's such a good sign when players have to change positions, like Chambers coming in, Young shifting to right mid, and McGinn coming back and dropping deeper. That they still be able to do the job, do the business, do their role with full commitment and execute it well. Shows you the players are bought into it. It's not just about individuals, it's about the team, it's about what your role is within that team and what the team's looking to do as a whole. And I think, there was, again, Watkins was talking about, going back to this interview, he was talking about how long the post-match debriefs take, that Emery's constantly pausing games and saying, look, you should have done this. This would have been better if you did that. You should have been in this position, and that kind of stuff. And to go into that level of detail, yes, probably for some players, it probably can be a little bit annoying. But I think if those players are committed to it, which they seem to be, it means that if there is ever a change in substitution, change in formation, players know what's going to happen. If we go down to 10 men, if we, some player gets injured or whatever happens, the players can adapt because they know what the team's about, what they're looking to do, what the game plan is. If we go 1-0 down, we know what the game plan is. There's a lot of thought gone into it. Whereas under Gerrard, I hate to go back to it, but it's the only comparison I can make.
It's relevant though.
Yeah, you couldn't from the start, for the first second, you couldn't really see what the game plan was. And never mind if an injury happened or we had to make a substitution. It was all, everything was completely out of control. You had no idea. Players had no real plan, no real idea what the plan was. If we go a goal down, we just didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to get back in the game. Now I just feel like the level of detail the manager's going in and his coaching staff are going into, that the players are fully brought into it. I think it's just a really good place to be. And, there's still people there thinking, I've seen a few tweets saying about new manager bounce and things like that, but it's been 5 months now.
It's beyond that now.
It's beyond that now. And I'm not saying this is going to last forever. We're going to continue this kind of good run and continuously be, third or fourth in the form table now, next season or anything like that. But I think the foundations are there. And remember, these are the same players pretty much. There's no real difference apart from Moreno, really. From what we saw, where some people were saying, well, the players aren't good enough. Writing the players off as well. To not what we're seeing now. McGinn, I was the first to say, maybe he should be on the subs bench. Maybe he shouldn't be starting games. We need to be doing better in midfield than John McGinn. But now he's one of the first names in the team sheet. He's for a 4 or 5 games now.
Go-to goal.
He's been fantastic, and he was him and Ramsey, but I'd say McGinn definitely was probably the man of the match on Saturday for me. And again, shows you the transformation and the fact that these players and how important belief is in football as well, and confidence. And I think that's what the results bring alongside obviously having a plan and having an idea of what to actually do on the pitch.
Well, there's 4 players who Conser was one I was definitely questioning at the start of the season. I remember saying, I think after the Palace game, he needs to be taken out of the team for his own good. I couldn't see what was going on with his form. He was nowhere near the player that I remembered of the lockdown season. Mings, me and you have probably always defended, but there was a lot of questions asked about him. McGinn was getting slated in a lot of quarters. I did think that was unfair, but again, I did feel he needed to be taken out of the team for his own good. But he was hung out to dry under the last manager and just playing no discernible role, playing a role that just didn't showcase anything that he was good at, and as I say, completely hung out to dry. Ollie Watkins was questioned as well. Even in January, there was a lot of fans that would have said, I'd rather lose Watkins than lose Danny Ings. Now, I've always thought Watkins offers a lot more than Danny Ings as a modern day forward. Watkins was my preference, but his goal output wasn't brilliant until the second half of the season. You look at those 4 players as an example of a manager coming in, not panicking in January, not having to bring in his own players. Look, again, we keep doing it, but Gerrard came and was like, I need this, this, and this. I think we signed 4 players in January. We probably got worse. Let's be fair, as that season went on. And Emery's just said, I'll wait till the summer. I'd rather not pay silly money for a player that I don't think he's good enough. I'll get my proper targets in the summer. I'll work with what's there. I'll back myself to improve the players that are there. And those 4 players I've just mentioned, no Villa fans are questioning them now. Contra and Mings yesterday, if one of them makes a mistake, the other one's there to mop up. And if they're both not there, the goalkeeper saves it. Ashley Young, I don't remember him getting universal prize last season. He's probably up there as one of our players of the season. Someone just said in the comments that 36, 37-year-old Ashley Young playing 90 minutes against Chelsea in 2023.
They're playing well as well.
These players have all improved under Unai Emery. Everything is improved under Unai Emery. We've got a special manager here, one that we need to be looking to build around long term. I pray to God we can keep, and I pray to God. Remember when we had that 3-game run? We lost 3. And I remember there'd been a few questions asked of him, which I thought was a little bit harsh considering 2 of those games were Man City and Arsenal, but some of the honeymoon periods over, blah, 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 things like that. There'll undoubtedly be times again when we struggle, where we maybe don't win for 3 or 4 games. Those times will come. But we've got to keep the atmosphere positive as Villa fans now and keep going, because we have got a special manager that is going to take us places. If Unai Emery doesn't take us places, no one ever will. I firmly believe that we could not have a better manager, realistically, in charge of our football club, Omar.
Completely agree. I cannot, honestly, couldn't put it better myself. I think this is the chance now. This is why I was a little bit aggrieved about January transfer window at the time, in terms of why we didn't sign more players. I think
it was understandable to ask the questions of it.
But I think, actually, looking back at it now, and this is me being a fan at the time, thinking, let's push on. And I think it's fan mentality, and I'm plenty guilty of it, is thinking
we all do it.
To get better, you've got to sign players. And I think, to some extent that's true, but actually not always. And I think Unai Emery, shows you the level of the man. He wasn't that perturbed. He wasn't that upset about signing players. Yes, he probably would have liked more players coming in, but he's kept like a tight knit group of players, a bit like Martin O'Neill did back in the day. Sort of keeping us together, keeping the squad quite small, but everyone's fighting for each other. There's players like, if you have a big squad, then players on the bench sometimes don't come on and play with the same commitment or the same attitude and same application. Whereas now the likes of Chambers coming on, even Dendonko's hardly got any minutes. He's full of commitment himself. Luca Dean, has obviously been usurped by Moreno. He's still coming on fully committed, diving into challenges. These players, even though they're on the bench and not getting games, they know that they will get an opportunity. They're an important part of the team, and they're not just coming in to make up the numbers. They're coming in to do a role and make a difference in the team. And I think it doesn't matter if you start or come off the bench. I think Emery's got that sort of mentality in the squad now. It's a really, really good place. And I think, it's just a shame that Brentford and Brighton, the likes of those teams, have done so well as Villa at the same time, because we could have really, really cemented ourselves in the top half. But we've got a real opportunity.
We aren't far off them.
We're not far off them still, which shows you how well we're doing. But there's a real opportunity now, and obviously we play a couple of them as well in the coming games as well. So yeah, it's sort of make or break, isn't it? Really, I think we never expected us to be in this position at this point in the season. To be in this position now, you just hope, fingers crossed, it all goes well. And these kinds of games, the Chelsea game is case in point. Typical Villa. I was talking to a couple of fans before who were really a bit like the Villa tour video, which I saw as well. We were really, really upbeat and thought, yeah, we're going to do him 2-0, 2-1, whatever. And I was thinking in the back of my mind, just being a bit cynical as I always am, thinking it's just Villa. They always let you down at that time where they need to do something. When they actually need to push in to the top half, they seem to let you down. And the fact that we won that game, went ahead of Chelsea, put them back to 11th, got to 9th, and now we're suddenly looking up ahead now. I think it's a great sign, because in Villa sides have passed, that kind of make or break game in the season, we would have lost. And the fact that we did win, and had a bit of luck, yeah, sure, but applied ourselves and were dogged and got the win, and were clinical as well. More importantly, when we had we had our chances, I think that's such a great sign, and I'm just really, really excited for the rest of the season. I think it's massive, honestly, massive few games coming up.
Yeah, Gaz Oak says 1.93 points per game is ridiculous. If that is
wow.
number, I'm relying on his maths fully here, then that is incredible. From where we were at, we were horrendous. We were awful. I did not enjoy watching us at all. And sometimes we're not easy on the eye under Emery, but I love that about us, because that's what's part of what's making us a really good team at the moment. We've kind of got the best of both in the way that we're playing as well. John McGinn's goal, it's a lovely goal, well overdue. He knows himself. He's been talking about it for weeks that he was well overdue a goal. When he hit the bar, I thought to myself,
yeah,
McGinn and Mings may never score again for Villa. It's been so long since either of them scored for the football club. Two of our longest serving players. It's got power, but it's controlled as well. And I kind of felt as well, I don't know whether anyone else saw this, but before Luiz took the corner, he did this like there was a plan, like there was a routine coming. I don't think we delivered it perfectly, but I do think the plan was always to deliver a not so high ball into that near post, and maybe it end up with McGinn. Well, I mean, we'll try and find out off some.
No, definitely. He tried.
There was a plan there. It maybe wasn't executed properly, but it worked. But we scored.
He sort of chipped it in, didn't he? He didn't go for a full-on curling ball into the box. He sort of chipped it into the near post. So it wasn't like he mishit it.
No, but he was trying to put it there.
I think what was meant to happen was meant to be laid off to Buendia, who was sort of dropped back a little bit, and he went past him, and then went to Ramsey, who then laid it off. So I do think there was a plan there. It didn't quite work, but it ended up obviously with a chance. And then Dougie Luiz as well. We haven't talked about him. A lot of comments there, coming through about Dougie Luiz. He's been one of our, if not our best player, I think, this season.
Did you see his interview with Greg in the Athletic?
Yeah. He about his failed move to Arsenal and how committed he is to the club. Yeah.
Just about his role and understanding his role better. Again, it's just maybe he's not been utilised to the most effective way. When he first came in, he was someone I was very unsure of.
Yeah,
Douglas Luiz. But over the last few years, I think he's turned into an excellent footballer, and he's got to be close to getting back in that Brazil team now. But just having that defined role, he seems like he knows what he's doing, what he's supposed to be doing, and it's second nature to him. He's playing relaxed, playing with intensity at the same time as being relaxed. He's just a really brilliant operator in that central midfield.
He's coming to his peak years as well. I think people forget how young he was when he joined us and how young he's been when he's been playing for us. And he's 24 now, 25. Hitting his peak years, and it's showing his mobility, his awareness, his calmness on the ball. There was games in the past where he'd have a really good game, and the next game he wouldn't be so good. But also, I think you can see exactly consistency, and also I think sometimes the system let him down. He was exposed a lot defensively, right. Whereas now that double pivot that we play, it just works so much better. There's so much more protection there for the defense and for the whole team as a whole. And I think that just benefits him, and he's allowed to get forward when he needs to. He's got 5 assists this season. He's chipped in with a few goals as well. It's just all around brilliant player and just fantastic to see. And yeah, I think I was a little bit worried when Kamara got injured, thinking, Kamara's doing a lot of work for Dougie Luiz to make him. And I knew Dougie Luiz was brilliant. I think he was brilliant under Steven Gerrard, just wasn't getting a chance. But I thought Kamara was a big part of that, and the fact that he got injured and McGinn's come in, and he's still been, if not probably better, I think actually Dougie Luiz since Kamara has been off, because he's had to take a bit more responsibility. Just shows you the level he's playing at now. And thank God he didn't go to Arsenal, because yes, he could have potentially be winning a title, but for us, I think he's massive.
What you've just said says a lot about McGinn as well, I think, coming into the central midfield role, because again, you were taking him out of a position where he'd been doing well wide, and he's coming to the middle, and actually Luiz's role hasn't really changed. It's still been him that's been the more getting forward of the two central midfielders. But that shows you how good McGinn's been, that we didn't really miss Kamara at all, because he's provided a lot of the things that Kamara was providing. McGinn's passing was something that always got questioned. He played. I mean, it was him that played the through ball yesterday to Watkins, wasn't it? The one he missed.
Yeah.
McGinn's distribution seems miles better than it was under Steven Gerrard, and something that was questioned about. Every midfield player will give the ball away sloppily at some point, but McGinn's passing just seems so much more precise and on the money now. And it must be confidence. Confidence is a huge thing.
It's definitely confidence. 100% confidence, but also he's got options as well. I think that's the way that we play football. You know, one big criticism again that I've had, and a lot of people have had, is sort of his Hollywood balls. You know, his attempt to play a through ball from deep when the ball wasn't really on, and not trying to build the play, and his lack of sort of short passing. And I think that's completely changed because he's confident, 100%. We know he's good on the ball in terms of pivoting, and he can go either way in terms of, you know, if he's got his back to a defender or back to a midfielder, he can turn. Like that. He's clever like that, and he can pass it away. But he's got options on the left and right, and plus we're a bit more patient with the ball. And players come deep, you know, the way Buendia, Watkins, or the wingers or the midfielders sort of drop in those gaps and then come deep to pick the ball up. You know, the way that we play and the fullbacks get out wide, it just gives him plenty of options where he doesn't have to look for that eye that need a ball. And I think it's a combination of that and the confidence and the belief, obviously, which has been a massive factor. And I think that deep position really suits him as well. I'm not saying he should be there permanently, but I have no qualms about him playing there if he needs to, because he's been fantastic there.
I mean, the biggest credit you can pay to Emery and to McGinn, again, is the fact that both of those positions suit him. He's been excellent in both the positions so far and under Unai Emery. And again, just worlds away from the conversations we were having about John McGinn under Steven Gerrard. He just wasn't the fun John McGinn that I'd enjoyed watching for Villa previously. Everything good about him had been taken out of his game by such a rigid system and just no real clue. Villa players now, I've lamented this for longer than we've been back in the Premier League. I lamented it in the Championship, and I would have lamented it before we got relegated as well, in that Aston Villa players pick the ball up in space. Never seen so many Villa players pick the ball up in space in games. It's absolutely mind-boggling, because I don't feel like I've ever seen it, even in the times we were good under Martin O'Neill. That was very in transition, the way we played there. We build the ball up, and suddenly a player just appears in an absolute acres of space, and I absolutely love watching it, because for years I've thought, what's there no movement from Villa? Why do we never pick the ball up in space? Yeah, why are they so congested? Why are the players so close together? I just love watching everything about us at the moment. I'm waiting to be brought back down to earth at some point. You know, maybe it will be Tuesday against Leicester, depending on what happens with them. But we've got something good here for the long term, and for us even to be in the conversation for Europe is absolutely ridiculous, because we were only in one conversation in my mind before Emery came in, and that was, are we going to stay up? I really thought we would have gone down. We'd have been in this mix of 9 teams. It would have been 10 teams. Yeah. We'd have been adding to that in the bottom half. We'd have been in big trouble. But for us to even be in the conversation to be in Europe now and to have a real chance of getting 7th, that blows my mind. That shows the progress.
It's mind blowing. Honestly, it is crazy, and I think, if I think back to those times where we were having those conversations, Dolan was on at the time. I think yourself, Ty, sometimes Neil as well, and sort of the podcast we were doing at that time, where it was just, I think about some of the games like Arsenal and Fulham away, and I just remember the way I was feeling about the club and just top to bottom how it was wrong. And I think it's weird. We've signed a manager. We've not gone to the modern system of hiring a coach who has to then sort of embed himself within an overall system. We've hired a coach who's transformative in terms of he's an elite mentality, elite coach, but he's the one going to be changing the club from top to down, rather than someone else changing the club top to down. And I think you'll see not only will the signings be important, but I think in terms of the sporting director, in terms of the way we do scouting, in terms of the way we do fitness, tactics, the way we play football, just throughout, I think Unai Emery's the vital cog in all of that, and he'll be the key figure. He's almost like a head coach, manager, sporting director, CEO, all into one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
He's that kind of figure, and I think he's so important for our future now, both in terms of when he's here, but also obviously, he won't be here forever. As we know, the way football works, it doesn't matter. You're only as good as your last game, but I think this is a really, really key period for Villa for this season and try and get into Europe. I think if we can get 8th, potentially we can get a conference, but I also think for the future as well, this sort of next 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is going to be massive for this club, and just really, really excited. And it's nice to be happy, but we've been happy under Dean Smith, and we've been happy at times, even under Steven Gerrard when he first came in. But this feels completely different. I don't know what you think, but this feels like it's like the club's in a almost like on a different lane, different path completely.
Yeah, this is special. This is good. I think this is going to be special. If we don't win a trophy under this manager or qualify for Europe, then it's not happening ever.
Yeah.
For us, I'm afraid, because this manager really is something else. I mean, Richard Edwards says in the comments, going under the radar has been a blessing. No pressure on players. Europe wasn't in the conversation when Emery took over. It was to stabilise and wait till the summer. He's an elite coach. But now those conversations are there. Even Emery kind of said himself, we've achieved the first objective, which was to solidify, get away from trouble, and cement ourselves as a mid-table team. Now there's perhaps an opportunity for go for Europe. Emery will want Europe because that, you know, he said himself, he loves the Europa League. He'd love to be in the Europa Conference League even. I'm sure the chance is there to now try and do something, and teams are starting to fall away a bit. I said in the preview, I think Fulham will start to fall away now, and I do think they will. And maybe we kind of feel like, you know, when we get to this point of the season and a team that maybe is in the top half, you kind of say they're on the beach because they've done what they needed to do, and we're not on the beach, and there's no way we'll ever be on the beach under Unai Emery. So I feel like we've got a bit of upwards momentum. It feels a little bit like the 10-game run in the Championship, where you just felt we're onto something here. Kind of got those vibes, got those feelings that you're going into most games confident that Villa have got. Just to even think that we're going to get 3 points, usually we'd sit here and go, you know what, I just don't fancy us. Or even if we were on a good run, we'd be like, I'd be so Villa to lose this game now.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to leave those kind of thoughts behind as Villa fans now. I just need to give a quick shout out to people who are somehow donating money. I didn't even know you could do that. Whilst we've been having this conversation, apparently Matt Hanlon has given a donation, as well as Rod. I presume that's Rod Humble. Yeah, Rod Humble as well. So thank you for doing that. I didn't even know you could do that.
Good guy, Rod. I had him on the
Guinness.
Had him on the channel. Had him on my channel once. Rod, he's a good guy. Had him on my channel once. Yeah. He's
well, thank you.
Yeah, no, very good. Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Matt. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I didn't know you could do that. I had no idea.
No, well, it's much appreciated. Thank you very much. Obviously, two people at the very least are enjoying what we're talking about, Omar. But I mean, as Villa fans at the moment, you must be watching every podcast, every show that's out there, watching Match of the Day 7 times, watching any kinds of highlights package that you can. You know, it's just we are in a fantastic place. So I think we'll call it there. Let's end while everything's good, Omar. Let's end while we're still on air as well. Always a problem on this channel. So let's go. Let's go. But thank you ever so much for everyone that's been talking in the live chat. Thanks to Omar for joining me. Thanks to Adam for producing as well. There will be an 1874 probably in the next 24 hours. Probably need to get that done quite quickly because of the fast turnaround. Not sure how we're going to manage the fast turnaround this week, but there'll obviously be some content. So subscribe to the channel with your post notifications on, and give the video a like and a comment if you're watching not live as well. Tell us what you're thinking about Aston Villa Football Club as well, and do go and watch all the other content creators as well, because I watched Max's video this morning on Villa on Tour. Absolutely
good. Loved it.
I really enjoyed it. I wasn't there on Saturday. Loved seeing the away end as happy as it was. So many good people that have gone away for years and it's been absolutely miserable. And even the first half of this season, going away must have been a real chore. And there's those that have done it every single week, and they're really getting what they deserve now. Some wonderful people that sitting that away and week in, week out, to have won the amount of games we had. We hadn't won a game away from home until Unai Emery came in. I think we've won 5 or 6 now. We've only lost once. So those fans, they really deserve it, because they've been doing that kind of thing since the championships here. We'll be back on the Villa View with some content from tomorrow. There'll be some content tomorrow, I would imagine. So stay tuned for that. Have a good rest of your Sunday evening. I'm going to go and watch Match of the Day now because I haven't watched it yet. Up the Villa.
The Villa.